Welcome to the College Recruiter webinar. The subject of today's discussion will be Keywords Are Killing Your Recruiting. Is your searching strategy missing top talent? My name is Andrea McEwen Henderson, and I will be your host today. I am one of the national account managers with College Recruiter. I have a dozen years of experience in helping large and small employers reach recent college graduates and students. My primary responsibilities are facilitating our webinars, moderating the discussions at our college recruiting bootcamp conferences, as well as working with small to mid-sized employers on their entry-level hiring needs. College Recruiter is the highest traffic college job board with 150,000 unique monthly visitors. We help employers reach recent graduates and students of 1, 2, and 4-year colleges and graduate schools. We have permission to deliver emails on behalf of our employer clients to 7 million recent graduates and 10 million students, and can also target them by major, school, year of graduation, diversity, and more. Our other solutions for employers include job postings, targeted mobile banner ads, targeted display ads, virtual career fairs, and custom research projects. For more information about College Recruiter, you can reach us at www.collegerecruiter.com/contact or 952-848-2211. Today's guest is David Sarnowski, Customer Experience Manager at Harkin. David has 18 years of experience across education, coaching, and marketing, helping clients align and accelerate their recruiting processes and delivering the client business outcomes that matter most to them. I'll turn the webinar now over to David.
Great. Thank you so much, Andrea. Everybody, it's a pleasure to have you here today with us, and I'm really excited to talk about keywords. And the reality is, I think, quite honestly and openly, that keywords are actually killing your recruiting. So let's go ahead and let's ground things a little bit. So keyword searching is something that you can typically do, and it's available in just about any piece of recruiting technology that you can find out there. You can find it in ATS systems. You can find it on job boards. You can even find it in our own product. You can go ahead and type in a word, search for particular candidates, and it will go out and look to try and find candidates who've got that keyword sitting in their resume or sitting on their cover letter. Somewhere out there, it's going to find that word, and ideally, the whole goal is to bubble up the candidates that are most qualified to your recruiters. Well, this is a visual of ultimately what we want. You know, if we imagine on the left, that's your recruiter's daily life. I put out a job, I have a position, I need to fill it. I know that there are more people who are interested in my position than I can fill. And of those people, not everybody's qualified. So in this instance, you know, our green dots are our qualified people. The image on the left is what your recruiters deal with all the time. And the image on the right is what we are hoping that keywords will do for us. That when I search for a particular skill and I type in that keyword, it should bubble up the best candidates to the top so that I'm spending my time and effort with the people who are most likely to be successful right from the get-go. So that's what we want. However, there are two big problems with keywords. And problem number one is the cat is out of the bag. Candidates know that we do this. Not only do they know that we do it, but there are millions upon millions of resources teaching them how to game the system. Now, again, these candidates aren't bad. They're not evil people. They just want a job. They want to work. They want to do something. And they're trying to figure out a way to make themselves bubble up when a recruiter is reviewing potential people. You know, that's what anybody would want to do. But because they know this, because the jig is up, and they know ways to stock their resumes and stock cover letters and to say, quote unquote, using keywords, the thing that you're looking for, they're really skewing the results. The end outcome is that when you're doing that search, what you thought was you were going to get this nice pyramid effect of all your top quality candidates moving to the top and everybody else sifting down to the bottom. And that's not the case. The reality is we're right back where we started, that we've got a huge pool of candidates that come up when I do this keyword search, but I can't confidently assume that the most qualified people made it into that, or that those most qualified people aren't currently being obscured by people who don't have that skill set. That's problem number one, and it's a big one. I loved this cartoon. It's really similar, quite honestly. Keywords, I don't want to make light of it, but I do want to kind of compare it with the whole antibiotic issue. We've got antibiotic resistance going on in the country because we figured out antibiotics are great. They keep us healthy. So we overused them. We used them everywhere. And now those germs have adapted, and now we can't use them anymore. They're not nearly as effective. The same thing is happening with keywords. When we started out, it was a great idea, but again, the cat got out. People knew that this is what we were doing, and they adapted, they evolved, and that change is making things tougher for us. So what's the second problem? Well, the second problem is they don't even know that there's a cat to begin with. So you could have a candidate who is exceptionally skilled in what they do, but they're not aware of the keyword that you're ultimately using to try and find them. And this is compounded especially in scenarios where you might have a recruiter who really doesn't fully appreciate the position that they're recruiting for. So now if you're in a direct hire situation, the likelihood of this is a little bit less because obviously your recruiters are going to deal day in and day out with the people who are coming through your business, but it's still there. If you are a recruiter who's looking for a very specialized person in the financial industry, or you're looking for somebody with a very specific type of welding experience, both of those positions highly specialized, if you don't know the keyword, if you're using welding to find the welders, you're going to get a lot of welders, but not necessarily the one you want. Or if you're doing something in the financial industry and you really don't know the key word to use, you're going to miss out. You're going to be missing candidates potentially. And the same thing on the candidate side. If you're really good at what you do, but you don't know the word that this person is using to try to find you, you're in a scenario where you potentially, even though you could easily be the most qualified person in the room, you could be missed because your resume didn't have that keyword. So we end up with two problems on either end of the spectrum, and both of them are really dangerous. Problem number one, we're not being any more efficient. We're getting unqualified people in with our qualified people. Our search isn't filtering out who we hoped it would. And problem number two, if we're not using the right keywords in the right way and people aren't aware of it, we are potentially missing out and excluding the right people from our searches. So what are we going to do now? What are our options? Well, option number one is let's follow the Google. Okay, Google made their bones by identifying and searching websites for particular keywords. When they started out, when you searched for a website on Google, you typed in a word and Google went and said, I found the website that has this word in it. But marketers, just like candidates, got really smart and they started learning how to stock websites with keywords so that Google was pulling up a search and say, all right, let me look for pelicans, and it was finding a bunch of websites with pelicans, but not a lot of these websites were authoritative. They weren't talking about pelicans in a real way, that was really beneficial to people. It was, a marketing page of somebody trying to sell you a pelican or to spam you or to do something like that. But Google couldn't differentiate. So what Google did was they changed their algorithm. They changed the way they search. And so their latest search algorithm is called Hummingbird. And what they do is instead of using keyword, they're looking at conversation, essentially conversational searches. And now when they look at a website, rather than looking for one specific word, they're looking at, does the copy and content on this website talk about pelicans in such a way that it really makes sense? That isn't just that somebody stuck the word pelican on one of my pages and we found it. It's that they're talking about it in a coherent way and in multiple ways that's being engaged by other people. Okay? So Google is moving from the keyword to the conversation. So then the question becomes, how do we give candidates the opportunity to converse with us before we get to the point of starting to screen or have this be part of our screen? Okay. Well, first thing I want to just pause and say is that yes, there's potentially more work involved here. Typing one word and searching and getting a list of 100 candidates and then trying to run with those 100 candidates, pretty quick, pretty easy. But again, from an efficiency standpoint, you could be running with 100 candidates who are not a good fit. And so you're going to spin your wheels on the back end. Here, if we follow this change, we're going to do a little bit more work on the front end, but that work is going to make sure that when we get to the point where we whittle down to our candidates, those candidates that we have left are really the ones that we need to go after. So things I want to highlight for you are utilizing things like digital on-demand interviews. These are tools that let your candidates respond to questions that you ask anytime, day or night. You could build that in as part of your interest or application steps and let candidates really speak to their skills and experience. So rather than being able to stuff a keyword on their resume, they have to formulate a coherent thought, a coherent paragraph, a coherent conversation about something that matters in your industry. You could do the same thing with some written questions. So again, really looking to have candidates respond in a more specific way about what it is they know. You could also look at using assessments. Now, the one thing that I want to highlight with each of these is you want to make sure that you're using them in as light a fashion as you can so that you're not preventing great candidates from moving forward. If any of these tools feel onerous to the candidate, they might start to drop out a little bit. So you got to measure that. What else can we do? Well, don't tip your hand to candidates. Part of the reason that the keyword situation is a problem is because we're telling our candidates exactly the keywords that we want to hear. A lot of times recruiters aren't doing a great job with job ads. They're spitting out exactly what was in the job description, and the job description is jammed with all the buzzwords that you want somebody to be able to see. Okay? So what we need to do is we need to start to write our job ads a little bit more conversationally as well. We need to talk about what it is that we're trying to do, the type of job that we have, the type of person that we're looking for, but we want to do it in such a way that is a little bit more open and lends itself to letting candidates reply. And if candidates can reply using keywords or using content that really demonstrates their mastery, that's a great candidate, and you haven't spoon-fed it to them. You haven't handed them the 6 words that you want to see. Lastly, we need to look at searching for the forest in addition to the trees. Again, one of the things that we've done with keywords is we've really tried to get very specific. We tried to drill down and say, okay, if I use a general search, I get a lot of candidates. And if I use a specific search, I'll get right down to who I need. But again, remember, if you've already given away that keyword, it's lost a lot of its power. Let's use Microsoft Excel, for example. If you've said you must be a Microsoft Excel expert, if I'm a candidate worth my salt before I submit my resume, you can bet I'm going to put Microsoft Excel on there in some way, shape, or form. Okay? When you do that search, you'll find all those candidates. I recommend looking at, in addition to doing Microsoft Excel, it doesn't mean you can't use a specific word, also use a broader search term. So spreadsheets, for example. Now you might be saying, Dave, this is going to bring me a bigger pool. And that's right. But I'm going to use this bigger pool, and I'm going to use some of those other tools. Okay, I'm going to use my job ad, and I'm going to use digital interviewing or written assessment or written questions to find my audience and push it to them and then say, look, I want to talk about spreadsheet experience. Tell me what sort of spreadsheet experience you have. And if you can respond back to me and say, I've got 10 years using Microsoft Excel, bing, 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 you jump to the top of the list. But this is also going to help you capture people who use different terminology. So you might find a great candidate who says to you, I don't use Microsoft Excel, but I have 25 years in using LibreOffice or OpenOffice or Google Docs or something like that. 25 years might be a bit of a misnomer since Google Docs has not been around that long, but I digress. The point is that you could find a great candidate with an equally transferable skill set who jumps out. So those are 3 things that you can do in a concrete fashion. Use some resources to have your candidates converse, write your job ads, and don't spoon feed the keywords that you're looking for, And then when you do your searching, even though it's going to give you a bigger pool, use some broader terminology to make sure you're not excluding people who haven't given the right keyword. Really focus in on that. And that's it. Those are some of the key steps that we recommend, some of the key problems that you may encounter using keywords. And now I'd like to go ahead and open it up for some questions.
Thank you so much for David for this insight about keywords. That was really great. And we do have some questions for you. Our first one is if we are not to rely on keywords, what do we rely on?
It's a great question, and ultimately it gets back, and I'll kind of fall back to my antibiotic example. The issue is that when we find something that works, we're lazy. When we find something that works, we like to use that and run with it. So using keywords is not inherently a bad thing. The problem is that we found keywords, it's a neat feature in our ATS or it's a neat feature in our job board, and that's all we do. So the big thing is go ahead, use keywords, but you need to use it in a balanced approach with some of these other methods. Again, if we want to use antibiotics, you know that, hey, if you get sick, yeah, antibiotics might be an answer to that problem, but so is rest, so is eating good food, so is drinking a lot of water. Let's try those other things first before we go ahead and just jump to using the antibiotic all the time. And the same thing is true of the keyword. If you guys have done a good job with your job ad, if you're giving candidates an opportunity to use some conversational language to try to let themselves stand out, then when you go ahead and implement keyword and use it, it's really going to be much more valuable. So my answer to that is don't rely on any one thing. There is no silver bullet. Use multiple bullets. You'll be in much better shape.
Great. Now, the second question is you mentioned reliance on any one thing is a mistake and that we should use a myriad of tools. Can you please tell us what tools you were talking about?
Yeah. So again, I wanted to go back, if we go back to my slide, and these, again, there are multiple tools out there, a lot of great products, but just want to highlight some of these for you. Again, I think digital interviews are used by a lot of people. I'll be upfront and say I think a lot of people use them incorrectly. I think what they're hoping to use with a digital interview is to have one person answer some questions and then ultimately make a final hiring decision based on that recording. I don't think that that's the right way to go about it, but I think digital interviews can absolutely play a great role and a very simple and light footprint role in your screening process to help candidates really confirm that they know what they're talking about. I think that's one option. I think using written questions in your application step and in your application process can be really helpful. It does demand that you need to be able to read those responses. And again, a lot of people look at this from a volume perspective. If you're doing high volume hiring, written questions I think may need to fall a little bit later in your funnel, but I think it's a great one. And then the other is assessments. There are a lot of great assessment vendors out there. A lot of them, again, are very lightweight and can be implemented at different stages in the recruitment process. And I think any combination of those tools or some of the other tools that are great, this is by no means an exhaustive list, but I would look at those to start with.
And my last question is do you have an example or some tips on writing a job description in a more conversational tone?
Yeah, I think that that's a great one. Actually, I have a really interesting example of that one. We did a blog post recently because there was a great and hysterical blog post from a technology company out of San Diego. So this is a shot on our blog, and we'll just jump to the job post itself. Now, I will be upfront and say that the job post is fairly profane, at least the one that they reference. So they did us the favor of kind of blocking it out. And while I am not a proponent of writing a job ad like a pirate, I am a big fan of writing job ads in such a way that it lets people really talk about what's great about themselves without giving them the blueprint. So it's a great job ad. I've shared the link with Andrea, and Andrea, you obviously can share with anybody, but this is a great one looking for developers. if you read it through, first of all, it's hysterical. It will renew your faith and in the fun of recruiting. But the other thing they do really well is they just talk about, in general terms, what we're looking for. Now, they certainly do drop, a few keywords in there, but they let people talk. And the process they have in moving forward is asking candidates to send an email writing about their experience, and I thought that was really great. So that was a great reference to look at. Another one that we saw on our website, and this is in fact a real job ad that somebody put in, was somebody to go back in time with me. There's a basis actually of a movie at one point. But so I think just using some broader sense of what you're looking for without just saying, I want somebody who knows exactly this word, this word, this word, and this word, because again, the end result is an entrepreneurial candidate is going to take that word, that word, that word, and make sure that those are in their resume regardless of their skill set. And then ultimately you're in a position now where you have to call them out. You've got to find them later in the screening process and knock it out. And you want to make sure that somebody's demonstrating expertise earlier.
Thank you so much, David. And thank you for attending this college recruiter webinar. The subject of today's discussion was on keywords are killing your recruiting. Is your searching strategy missing top talent? My name is Andrea McEwen Henderson, and I was your host today. I am one of the national account managers with College Recruiter. I have a dozen years of experience in helping large and small employers reach recent college graduates and students. My primary responsibilities are facilitating our webinars, moderating the discussions at our college recruiting bootcamp conferences, as well as working with small to mid-sized employers on their entry-level hiring needs. College Recruiter is the highest traffic college job board with 150,000 unique monthly visitors. We help employers reach recent graduates and students of 1-, 2-, and 4-year colleges and graduate schools. We have permission to deliver emails on behalf of our employer clients to 7 million recent graduates and 10 million students, and we can also target them by major, school, year of graduation, diversity, and more. Our other solutions for employers include job postings, targeted mobile banner ads, targeted display ads, virtual career fairs, and custom research projects. For more information about College Recruiter, you can reach us at www.collegerecruiter.com/contact or 952-848-2211. Today's guest was David Sarnowski, Customer Experience Manager at Harkin. Thank you for joining us today.